Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Mystery Cave. Antarctica is the least populated continent in the world. It's an enormous landmass that is home to the South Pole and a handful of abandoned bases left behind by explorers. Antarctica is bigger than Europe and is almost twice the size of Australia. It's also covered in ice that's typically about 1 mile thick. Additionally, the frigid continent appears to be home to a strange and mysterious cavern. All kinds of bizarre things have been found in Antarctica thanks to satellite images, from what appear to be the ruins of a lost civilization to crashed spaceships. But because of the continent's remoteness, a lot of these so-called discoveries have been impossible to prove. The most recent unusual find is that of a black cavern hiding in an ice sheet on King George Island. An image of the entrance to the cave recently appeared online, but what's inside of it? Who created it? And what secrets could it be hiding? Unfortunately, scientists aren't really sure. Some have speculated the dark portal is the entrance to a subterranean cave system hiding beneath the continent itself. Just like so many of the other crazy alleged discoveries, there is no way for anyone to go and check this cave out. You can't exactly take a ferry to Antarctica and go exploring. And for that reason, all we have is speculation. Could this be the entrance to a tunnel that leads to a lost world covered in ice? For the time being, we just don't know. What do you think is inside the cave? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Number 9. The Bouches Map. The Bouches Map is believed to be evidence that Antarctica was once home to a mysterious civilization. The map was drawn around 1739 by a French geographer named Philippe Bouches de la Neuville. Philippe made a map of the known southern lands below the Tropic of Capricorn and the Cape of Good Hope. What is so unusual about the map, made before the official discovery of Antarctica, is that it shows the subglacial topography of the continent. Before Antarctica was ever found, this map seems to show what it looked like without it being covered in ice. It's baffled researchers for decades. Nobody understands how an ordinary French explorer could have possibly known about Antarctica. There are a few explanations to make sense of the map. Those who want to look at it from a more scientific view believe Philippe was hypothesizing a land at the bottom of the world. Because he never imagined such a land would be covered in ice, he drew the landmass normally. Those with more active imaginations have suggested Philippe copied an even older map made by an unknown party, an ancient map of Antarctica before it was ever frozen. And now for number 8. But first, I want to give a huge shout out to Andrew Federal for the super thanks. We wouldn't be here without support from viewers like you. If you are new to the channel, welcome, and be sure to subscribe. Number 8. The Crater. A meteorite smashed into Antarctica 250 million years ago. The crater it left behind was discovered by an international team of researchers. They used 2 satellites to pinpoint the exact location of the impact. What they found was staggering. It looks like the impact crater might be the largest of its kind on our planet, an estimated 300 miles long, and hidden underneath nearly a mile of solid ice. The discovery of the crater goes back to 2006. NASA and the German Aerospace Center worked together to measure anomalies in the gravitational field. Their instruments picked up an anomaly in the area of Wilkesland. Then, in 2018, they used new and improved satellite technology to confirm their suspicions. The impact made by the meteorite would have been devastating for life on Earth. The space rock would have caused an explosion of immense magnitude. Huge amounts of dust would have been pushed into the air, resulting in months of darkness and likely toxic rain. The entire planet would have turned into a raging inferno, a kind of planetary hellscape. Researchers believe that only a handful of shellfish survived the destruction. These shellfish were likely the early ancestors of dinosaurs, who began to take shape about 50 million years after the impact. According to Michael J. Benton from the University of Bristol, the crater could have eliminated about 90% of all life on Earth. Number 7. The Volcanoes of Antarctica. When you think about Antarctica, you likely imagine a desolate wasteland of ice and snow. But the truth is that Antarctica is a volatile land of volcanoes and potential annihilation. Scientists recently revealed just how dangerous Antarctica could be for the rest of the world. They discovered the scope of the icy continent's volcanoes, and unfortunately, it's not looking good. Hiding underneath all the snow and ice are very real mountains of fire and brimstone that could erupt at any moment. melting the ice and causing global oceans to surge to apocalyptic levels. Scientists have always known that Antarctica is home to multiple volcanoes, but nobody could ever agree on where the source of volcanic activity was coming from. But now, a team of scientists identified a location where heat is swelling in the Earth's mantle. This heat source is similar to the heat source that powers the Yellowstone volcano and the volcanoes of the Hawaiian Islands. It's deep underground, but we now know that it's there. The mantle plume, known as the Mary Bird Land, appears to be the heat source contributing to Antarctica's volcanic activity. But what does this mean for the future of Antarctica? As scary as it sounds, it likely isn't a huge deal. Researchers believe the volcanic source came into being over 50 million years ago, and since Antarctica has been frozen for most of that time, it clearly hasn't caused a problem with the ice. But if there ever is an eruption, it could be huge and catastrophic. Number 6. The strange monsters of Antarctica. Researchers in Antarctica recently made a shocking breakthrough when they discovered the remains of monsters that lived 250 million years ago. Not just a few monsters either, but a lot of them. As you may know already, Antarctica is primarily home to scientists. There are about 1,000 researchers living in Antarctica at any given time, each one trying to understand the history of the planet. One of those scientists is Christian Sidor from the Burke Museum, who traveled to Antarctica to conduct his own research. He and his team were searching for fossils to document what the wildlife looked like here in the prehistoric past. So they spent about 2 months uncovering the remains of creatures from a bygone age. They found fossils belonging to relatives of amphibians, ancient mammal relatives, and strange reptilian-like critters. One of the biggest shocks was that they found evidence of burrowing creatures, monsters that dug underground dens during the Triassic era. The conclusion of the study was a big deal for paleontologists. Experts have always known that there were dinosaurs living on the Antarctic continent, but nobody has ever known the full extent of it. The sheer variety of animal remains that have been found on the frigid continent have proven that even at the bottom of the world, it was once warm and balmy enough to support a myriad of life. At one point in time, there were dinosaurs, swampy amphibians like prehistoric frogs, and all kinds of beasts roaming throughout Antarctica. Considering the remains of these creatures are still frozen under over a mile of ice, researchers are hopeful that future excavations will yield even more incredible results. What other bizarre creatures do you think lived in Antarctica in the prehistoric past? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're at it, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Number 5. Crustal Displacement. There might be a secret city frozen underneath the Antarctic ice. Maybe not just one city either, but the ruins of an entire civilization that's been lost for thousands of years. It's a big claim, but where is the evidence to back it up? One of the scientific theories that supports a civilization living here is called crustal displacement. The theory, which hasn't been proven, alleges the Earth's crust shifted 12,000 years ago. Prior to the crust shifting, huge parts of Antarctica were much farther north, in a warmer climate where they weren't covered in ice. Then, when the crust shifted, the ice-free landmass wound up at the bottom of the world, and the civilization that was living there at the time was forced to abandon their cities due to the terrifying cold. What's really interesting about this theory is that the dates line up perfectly with Plato's description of Atlantis. In 360 BC, the famous Greek philosopher claimed Atlantis was destroyed around 9000 BC. That would be 11,000 years before today, around the same era that the crust allegedly shifted. If there truly was a city in Antarctica, and if it was Atlantis, it would still be buried under countless tons of ice. We likely won't find any evidence of it, assuming it exists, until more surface ice has melted. But do you really believe an ancient civilization occupied the now frozen continent? Let me know in the comments. Number 4. Admiral Byrd's expedition. Some very unusual photographs have been making the rounds online. Images supposedly taken during Admiral Byrd's famous Antarctic expedition are currently being shared on social media. In these photographs, there's supposedly proof of the lost civilization witnessed by the Admiral and nobody else. But But who was Admiral Byrd? He was a real U.S. Navy officer who went on multiple expeditions to Antarctica between 1928 and 1956. All of his expeditions were recorded in great detail, and so we know all the scientific facts he collected. There aren't any official details about a secret civilization being found. However, his expeditions have been closely linked to the Hollow Earth theory. According to the theory, the Admiral came upon the entrance to a secret world hidden beneath our own. This kind of shadow world is said to live underneath the surface of the Earth. Imagine if the planet was hollow, and on the flip side of the outer shell was another civilization. Then, in the center of the planet, there was a sun, or some other type of light source, allowing for strange and unusual life forms to flourish. It seems crazy, but it's been a popular theory for a few hundred years. Admiral Byrd was supposedly the one man to find the entrance to the Hollow Earth. Sadly, the pictures currently floating around were almost definitely generated by AI, not taken by Admiral Byrd or his crew. Still, that doesn't mean the Admiral didn't find something strange in Antarctica. Number 3. The Discovery Hut. There is a lonely wooden hut in the snowy fields of Antarctica that nobody has lived in for a very long time. It's called the Discovery Hut, and it's a ruin from the heroic age of polar exploration. Between 1897 and 1922, brave explorers from all across the globe were desperate to be the first ones to explore and map Antarctica. As a result, these adventurers left shoddy wooden cabins and huts all along the coastline. This one is at a place called Hut Point, near McMurdo Station. It was built on Ross Island in 1902 by British explorers hoping to claim Antarctica for themselves. The brightest minds in Britain were charged with the task of designing a suitable habitat for the frigid Antarctic conditions. But these supposedly brilliant minds had never spent much time in the snow, and so the whole project was a total failure. The design for the hut was given to a company in Australia and was prefabricated in pieces. These pieces were then taken to Antarctica and assembled at the intended location, but there wasn't enough insulation. The wooden planks weren't as strong as they should have been, and the wind ripped right through the structure. The roof wasn't even designed in a way that the snow could easily slide off. The structure was a nightmare that nobody could live with, but there wasn't much they could do with it. They weren't about to pack the building up and take it home, so it's still sitting where it was originally constructed, almost entirely buried in snow. Would you be brave enough to go live in Antarctica for a while? Let me know in the comments. Number 2. Club 90 South Bar. There is a bar at the South Pole, one of the coldest watering holes on the planet. It's called Club 90 South Bar, and its story is fascinating. What a lot of people don't realize about past explorers is that they love to drink. Most expeditions didn't go anywhere without a solid supply of booze. Ferdinand Magellan refused to sail without ample wine and sherry. Ernest Shackleton even stocked his ships with enough whiskey to last his whole crew 3 years. Apparently, modern Antarctic explorers still enjoy alcohol. The thousands of scientists who rotate in and out of the icy continent still like to have a drink every once in a while. Club 90 South is only one of many bars servicing the almost 50 scientific stations in Antarctica. Almost every station has its own bar, its own bartender, and its own supply of beverages to keep the scientists from going completely insane. In the case of Club 90 South, nobody owns the bar and nobody pays for the booze. People simply share supplies and make sure the alcohol never runs dry. Number 1. The Emperor Penguin. The biggest penguin in the world is the emperor penguin, discovered by Antarctic explorers in the 18th century. The emperor penguin's scientific name is Aptenodytes forsteri, named after Johann Reinhold Forster. Johann was the naturalist who sailed with James Cook on his second voyage to the Southern Ocean between 1772 and 1775. A naturalist was what they used to call scientists who studied natural life, long before they were called biologists or zoologists. Historians believe Johann was the first human being to ever lay eyes on the emperor penguin. We know this because he mistakenly identified it as the king penguin. It wasn't until the beginning of the 20th century that Edward Wilson discovered the first breeding colony of emperor penguins. He was on the discovery expedition to Ross Island, which set sail in 1901 for Antarctica. He developed a fascination with the animals when he found them breeding on sea ice. Edward speculated that the eggs likely hatched during the coldest hottest months of the year, behavior that's very unusual for a bird. He became obsessed with penguins during his visit, loitering around the colony. He learned very quickly that chicks appeared to have a mortality rate of almost 70%, meaning that only 3 out of 10 chicks survived. These days, we know a whole lot more about emperor penguins. They love the cold, and their eggs really do hatch in the most extreme parts of winter. They also have a pretty cushy life eating fish, krill, and squid. They mate in pairs, and the female lays a single egg. If the chick survives, they can grow to nearly 90 pounds. The male also typically raises the baby after it's hatched, while the female leaves to go and find food. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, and let me know what else you'd like to see videos about in the comments below. See you later. Bye!